Hey everybody, and it's been a while, hasn't it? Disney's first few movies were great, weren't they? But there were a few problems for the company during this time. For starters, Pinocchio and Fantasia were box office flops due to the Second World War cutting off European markets, leading to the animator strike of 1941. With Disney losing a good chunk of animators to other companies, and once America entered the war, even more animators were taken, leading Disney to shelve their major animated projects like Cinderella, Lady and the Tramp, Peter Pan, and Alice in Wonderland indefinitely, in favor of the package films. Soon after the war ended, Disney got back to work with those films, starting off with Cinderella, leading to the company's Silver Age. Now today, I'm gonna look at all 8 films from this era and see if they're a worthy follow-up to the Golden Age or not. And let's begin with the first film of this new era, Cinderella. And given the possibility of cooties this movie has, I'd best go in this review prepared. Now I'm ready. We begin with a quick overview of her growing up with her widowed father, remarrying a wealthy woman, and mother of 2 daughters. After the father dies, the stepmother and stepsister's true evil colors are shown as they force Cinderella to work as a servant in her own home. Thank God she wasn't raised by these 2. But that doesn't stop her from pursuing her dreams in spirit, which is honestly impressive, as if I were in that situation, I would have introduced the mother and sisters to my good friend Mr. Gunn long ago. While she works around the house, we also get to spend time with her mice and bird friends, alongside the dog Bruno, Horse, and the stepmother's pet cat Lucifer. Maybe too much time with them. But when the film decides not to be a B-grade Tom and Jerry, you can sympathize with Cinderella as you want to see her succeed in life, whilst being constantly screwed over by her stepsisters and stepmother giving her a ridiculous amount of chores and orders that would give Bubble Bass a run for his money. And with that, I can see the appeal of this part of the film, and character in general. If only the rodents didn't take up half the runtime. Meanwhile, a king in a nearby castle is desperate to see his son get laid, so he plans to hold a ball in honor of his son's return with the intention of finding him a wife. Cinderella receives the news and informs the evil stepmother and sisters, with the mother even allowing her to attend if she can get her work done in time, which leads to her telling her friends about the event and gets out her mother's dress. Feeling sorry for her, they then improve the dress, even scavenging rags from the sisters. She's overjoyed and dresses up ready to go. Unfortunately, the sisters rip out their rags from her, forcing Cinderella to stay home, quickly giving up her hopes and dreams. What a baby. But just then, Cindy's fairy godmother comes to comfort her and fulfills her greatest desires, turning a pumpkin into a carriage because it's not Halloween yet, mice into horses, dog and horse as servants, and then giving her signature dress only for it all to disappear at midnight, ready to go to the ball. We then cut to the ball at the castle, and I have to say, this film's art direction looks stunning and the animation really has come a long way from Snow White, and its recent 4K scan apparently looks even better. Really glad I'm reviewing the worst looking 2012 Blu-ray version. Back to the film as Prince Charming then spots Cinderella and the 2 fall in love dancing through the night, with this close-up shot now haunting my nightmares. No. No. Midnight soon strikes as Cinderella leaves the ball with a glass slipper left behind and returns to her crummy life from before, whilst keeping the other slipper for later. The next day, the Duke tours around the kingdom to find out who Prince Charming fell in love with, by having every woman try out the glass slipper, with the stepmother locking Cinderella. Come on, we were right there, man! But the mice then grab the key and Bruno comes up to test if Lucifer has 9 lives. He doesn't. Anyhow, the glass slipper fits Cindy as she and Prince Charming get married and live happily ever after. Now that wasn't as filled to the brim with cooties as I thought it would be. Yeah, the film can often show its diploma from the Pinocchio school of plot conveniences, and some scenes can be overly long, especially the climax, but bear in mind that this was Disney's first proper feature-length film since Bambi 8 years prior, and with that, Cinderella is visually great to look at and is overall a nice return to form after whatever the hell the wartime era was. And the new streak continues with Alice in Wonderland. We begin in a park with Alice being taught history by her sister and fantasizes about her own world to live in. Her wonderland, if you will. She then encounters a rabbit late for a very important date, and she follows him, leading her to a rabbit hole, taking her into Wonderland. And I had to say, Wonderland itself is as much a vibrant and colorful world as it is a terrible Kingdom Hearts stage. The film takes a more episodic approach as Alice discovers the world and meets up with various charming and odd characters from a doorknob, sea-sailing dodo, the Humpty Dumpty brothers, walrus luring oysters, a bunch of flowers, and a smoking caterpillar, as well as getting into various situations like eating biscuits that make her both big and small. Despite some sections overstaying their welcome, they were for the most part quite enjoyable, and all had their quirks and charm to them. But the highlights are no doubt the Cheshire Cat getting in the way of Alice's adventure, and Mad Hatter holding a tea party celebrating unhappy birthdays every 364 days of the year. Oh, son of a gun, it's my birthday too! Oh, sure, for you it's completely normal, but when I do it, I sound like a total jackass. As Alice goes deeper in the rabbit hole, we then get to the short-fused Queen of Hearts with her trusty playing card guardsman and Rabbit finally arriving for his very important date. But Alice gets caught for painting the white roses red. To prove her innocence, Alice and the Queen play croquet with flamingos and hedgehogs. The Cheshire Cat pops by to mess with both, leading Alice to be held in court, even bringing in the Mad Hatter, celebrating the Queen's unhappy birthday. After the trial finds Alice guilty, she starts to flee from Wonderland back to the real world, all while everyone she met in the film chase her down. Alice in Wario Land 4, but it turns out that it was all a dream. This movie is the visual embodiment of everything great about animation. It's creative, wacky, unexpected, and delightfully mad, helping create a more dreamlike experience worth checking out, especially for animation fans. The characters are great, the film's wonderfully imaginative with its ideas, the scenery is vividly appealing, and overall, Alice in Wonderland is a visual treat to watch. Peter Pan next in line. We begin in a fancy London house with the Darling family as the parents are about to attend a fancy party and get into hijinks with Wendy, John, and Michael in the nursery, caught obsessing over the tales of the totally make-believe boy who never grew up, Peter Pan, with the pet dog Nana getting even more in the way. And guys, I think they did it. They perfected the human character designs in these films. They no longer look like my silly paralysis demons. Wendy is then told she has to leave the nursery for her to grow up. The couple then leave as the children go to sleep. Peter Pan alongside Tinkerbell then sneak into the nursery, definitely not at all creepy, and then find Peter's shadow waking up the children. Wendy sews Peter's shadow onto him and have fun. He then teaches them to fly by thinking happy thoughts while sprinkling pixie dust. Sounds easy enough. What's this? Oh, boom! So they all fly across London and head to Neverland, a place where you never have to grow up. We also get introduced to the pirates with their leader Captain Hook and his first mate Mr. Smee. Probably the best character in the movie, serving as a great threat to Peter and the kids, alongside showing his weaknesses, best seen with the ticking crocodile. Where's that ticking sound coming from? Oh shoot! Peter then takes the kids to his place and we meet up with the Lost Boys. Lost Boys. Not those Lost Boys! There we go. Jealous of Wendy, Tinkerbell tells the Lost Boys to shoot her down. And you can't help but find this scene strange given how she's one of the biggest contributors to Disney's brand. But yeah, Tinkerbell's a savage in this movie, and I wouldn't trade Neverland for it. Peter then tells Tinkerbell to screw off and the Darling Boys to lead the Lost Boys to find the island's natives, and soon get captured by... oh no. Oh no. Meanwhile, Peter and Wendy visit some mermaids at a cove nearby that nearly drown her. As long as they're not teaching her to devalue herself to meet unrealistic goals, it's fine. Peter and Wendy's employee then discover Tiger Lily caught by Captain Hook and go in to save her. Tiger Lily then returns to her tribe with the chief honoring Peter in a wildly politically incorrect sequence with a just as insensitive musical number. This is hard to watch, I deeply apologize. Meanwhile, Captain Hook finds Tinkerbell and takes advantage of her jealousy of Wendy and pinpoints Peter's hiding place for him. The Darling kids then grow homesick and suggest the Lost Boys to be adopted by the Darling family, but soon get captured by the pirates, with Hook sending a time bomb to Peter, exploding the hideout. Peter then finds Tinkerbell in the debris, whilst the children are held hostage by the pirates to either join them or walk the plank. Peter swoops in to save the day, leading to an exciting and engaging climax with Peter facing off against Hook and Kids against the crewmates, eventually defeating Captain Hook and the pirates. The ship is covered in pixie dust, and Peter returns the darling children to London, with the parents letting Wendy stay in the nursery, and Father recognizing a familiar ship from his childhood in the sky. Another hit for Disney with a lot of charm, exciting sequences, fun characters, great songs, and a magical sense of wonder and amazement. Putting aside Peter himself being one of the creepiest main protagonists ever in a kids movie and jarringly questionable stereotypes, this is a bona fide Disney classic. Lady and the Tramp, the first animated film to be produced in CinemaScope widescreen. It was a big deal at the time. We begin at Christmas with a man giving his wife a puppy called Lady. Months go by as she grows, and her owners plan on having a baby. We also meet the neighbor dogs, Jock and Trusty, as well as the stray tramp living life on the run before swinging by and warning the lot about their owners, focusing their attention more on the baby than on the pets. And remember to spay and neuter your pets today. The couple then have the baby, and turns out they still love Lady. The couple then get bored of the kid and go to a trip to China, and an aunt comes to stay to look after the baby and brings her highly insensitive Siamese pet cats with a shocking musical number and wreck out the place, pinning the blame on Lady, and we never see them again. Which is probably for the best. The aunt takes Lady to a pet shop to get her a muzzle, and Lady makes a break for it. She then bumps into Tramp and takes her to the zoo for a beaver to help take the muzzle off. Tramp then shows Lady what life is like for him exploring as a stray. KK and Isabel. Lady and Tramp then head to Tony's restaurant to have a spaghetti dinner served by what Illumination Mario and Luigi could have looked like. We then see the famous spaghetti kiss and cut to a sequence of Lady and Tramp in the park falling in love. It warms my heart seeing a bitch and a son of a bitch end up together. The next day, Tramp tries to convince Lady to live life freely with him, but decides to stay with her owners, and Tramp walks her home. After a scene of the two chasing chickens, Lady is caught by the Pound, and soon learns from the inmates that Tramp had many girlfriends prior to her, and that his weakness are females. Lady is then taken home by the aunt, and locked to her doghouse. Lady gets mad at Tramp for what she learned at the Pound, and soon puts aside their differences when they spot the rat entering the baby's room. Gee! I'm not even supposed to be in this movie, but screw it! Woohoo! They then head up to take on the rat, with Tramp killing it and hurting his wrist, whilst knocking the crib with the baby in it during the process. The aunt then calls the Pound after witnessing the scene to take in Tramp. The owners come back home amidst the chaos, and Lady barks what happened and show the dead rat with Jock and Trusty after overhearing what happened, chasing down the carriage carrying Tramp, spooking the horses, and running over Trusty. The owners then take Lady to rescue Tramp, and shows Trusty seemingly dead. Oh, Trusty, we hardly knew ye. Like seriously, you were barely in this movie. The film then goes to the Bambi School of Emotional Whiplash, as it's now Christmas time with Tramp now adopted, and that he and Lady have 4 puppies of their own, with Jock and a recovering Trusty popping by to visit, removing any and all impact the last scene involved. Like this is Disney we're talking about, they would never stick to keeping their characters dead. And so the Lady and the Tramp live happily ever after. Another solid one with a decent amount of heart, great cast of characters, stunning animation, and a pretty well told story. It was also interesting seeing this film in widescreen via Disney Plus, since the VHS for my childhood was most likely pan and scanned. Aside some overly long or skippable scenes, and the test of time hampering the experience at one point, Lady and the Tramp was another example of Disney further solidifying their feature-length craft, and I'd also want to see it get remade with these two in it. Anyhow, let's move on to Sleeping Beauty. We begin the tale with the king and queen receiving a long-awaited newborn child they named Princess Aurora. I'll be right back. Where were we? They hold a christening to celebrate the arrival, and an uninvited Maleficent then curses the newborn that on her 16th birthday, she'll touch a spinning wheel leading to her death. Cause the Grimace Shake didn't exist yet. The king then uses logic and puts a ban on all spinning wheels in the kingdom and burns them. Horror movie characters can take notes from this guy. The three fairies defend Aurora by having her sleep instead of dying, and then take her into their care and raise her secretly deep in the woods, hidden from Maleficent. 16 years pass with Maleficent in her lair, sending her pet crow to find Aurora after her henchman's long incompetence. Deep in the woods, Aurora is now grown up disguised as a peasant and about to return home avoiding the curse. She heads out to the forest, not allowed to talk to strangers, as the fairies plan a birthday party making a dress and cake without their magic in a pretty charming sequence. We then see Aurora Borealis hanging out with the woodland critters discussing her dream prince. As somebody who put over 540 hours combined in Animal Crossing, I could totally relate. We also see Prince Philip nearby with the woodland critters stealing his clothes for Aurora to dance with as the quote-unquote prince. Prince Philip discovers Aurora and the two dance with Philip falling in love with her, leading Aurora to quickly leave. Back in the cottage, the fairies resort to using their magic for the party, locking up the house so no one can see them. Just as the film briefly turns into Splatoon at one point, the crow then finds the cottage and info needed for Maleficent. Philip informs his father he fell in love with a peasant in the woods, much to his father's dismay, and heads back there.
Should I tell him?
Need to see Princess get more character development in these kinds of films, as opposed to the Princess Snow White showing up by the end by sheer luck, and Prince Charming who won by doing absolutely nothing. The fairies take Aurora back to the castle after 16 long years, and once the fairies leave her alone for a brief scene, so much for logic in this movie, Maleficent lures Aurora to a spinning wheel. The fairies soon discover what's happening and try to stop her. They're too late, and put the kingdom to sleep.
Gee, I could really benefit from that. The foxes outside at 3 AM would shut up.
Whereas Philip heads into the woods to find Aurora, only to be caught by Maleficent and be trapped in her dungeon.
Let's be honest. The villains are the best parts of these prissy films.
Just by looking at her, you can see why she's become such a mainstay for Disney. Her sinister cutting looks, intimidating goals, and is everything you could ask for in a good villain. And trust me, the best is yet to come. The fairies follow Maleficent to her lair, as Philip is held in a dungeon and taunted by Maleficent mentioning the Sleeping Beauty. Looks familiar. The fairies free Philip and escape, heading to the castle to save the Sleeping Beauty. Maleficent then stops him in his path by growing vines around the castle and blocking his way, transforming into a dragon with one of the coolest lines you'll never hear in a Disney movie again. The fairies then cast their power onto Philip's sword and throws it into Maleficent's gut, defeating her once and for all. He heads up to the tower and kisses Aurora, breaking the curse. Everyone in the kingdom wake up and are finally greeted to Aurora reuniting with her parents as she and Prince Philip live happily ever after. Now this was a good movie. The animation is phenomenal, gorgeous to look at, and is one of, if not the best looking classic Disney film. Great characters, especially the side ones, exciting scenes, and the best part? No questionable cultural depictions! Despite taking a minute for the beauty to, well, you know, sleep, this is an overall excellent accomplishment in animation.
And you'd think given the grand scope of the film, it'd be enough to kill the company. Well, it almost did.
Back when this film first released in 1959, this film was not the classic we know today, being quite the flop at the box office, only grossing $5.3 million against a budget of $6 million, and was also critiqued for repeating themselves after Snow White and Cinderella. Yeah, all 3 out of 16 films at the time. Not to mention, this film faced troubled production with constant delays, and Disney themselves focusing their attention on Disneyland. Concerned about closing the studio's animation department, they had one last hope with their films to keep them relevant: make them look worse. To help save money, the company resorted to using Xerox animation, a technique where you transfer drawings straight to animation cells. While Bits of Sleeping Beauty used the technique prior, 101 Dalmatians was the first film to fully use it.
Now, I've always had a soft spot for this type of animation, and I am also highly nostalgic with this film overall, and why am I still wearing the Cooties armor? And I can still remember when I was like 6, I was given the choice between a DVD of the film that also came with a plush, and a Snickers bar one day in Tesco. I went with the Snickers bar.
But got the DVD for my birthday and loved the hell out of that, and I also remember spending hours on the animated storybook game on PC, and also loving that. Disney, if you're watching this, then please put these games on Steam. In the film, we begin in London with Pongo and his owner Roger conducting music in their bachelor apartment. Pongo looks out to find Roger, or more likely himself, someone to be with out the window. He then spots a lady Dalmatian named Perdita with her owner Anita, and takes Roger to the park to hook the two up, with Pongo meeting Perdita. Roger and Anita soon get married and move in together alongside a maid. As Perdita's expecting puppies, we then get introduced to the film's villain and Anita's old friend Cruella de Vil, wanting some of the puppies to make a fur coat out of, also leading Roger to write the ever-famous song Cruella de Vil. Definitely one of Disney's best. Months pass as Perdita gives birth to 15 puppies, but Cruella pops by to get them, but is told they're not for sale, leading her to swear revenge. We briefly spend time with the pups watching TV, and as Pongo, Perdita, and their owners go out for a walk, Cruella's henchmen Horace and Jasper steal the puppies, eventually becoming headline news.
Slow news day, huh?
Once Scotland Yard are unable to find the puppies, Pongo and Perdita then start a gossip bargaining throughout London known as the Twilight Bark.
If only those fairies were here.
The news then spread over the country up to a sheepdog named Colonel and cat named Sergeant Tips. Tips sneaks into Cruella's house nearby to get intel of what's happening, and not only discovers the 15 puppies, but another 84 about to be turned into coats as well. Meanwhile, Pongo and Perdita then head off to a cross-country trek to find the puppies. Tips overhears that Cruella wants the puppies taken care of soon and fears of the police finding out, leaving the job to the Baddens. With that, Tips helps the puppies escape, with the Baddens then trying to stop them, but Pongo and Perdita arrive just in time to save the day, leading the puppies back home across the country, and it's surprisingly tense at some points. They then head to Dinsford and meet a Labrador. Pongo, Perdita, and the puppies disguise themselves as Labradors rolling in a sooty fireplace. Cruella finds them and the Dalmatians all get aboard a moving truck heading to London, with Cruella and the Baddens chasing the truck in an exhilarating and somewhat comedic climax, yet the Baddens crash towards Cruella's car into a ditch, letting the Dalmatians escape. They return back home to Roger, Anita, and the maid just in time for Christmas. And with Roger's Cruella de Vil song being a hit on the radio and receiving vast songwriting royalties, he plans to buy a big house in the country to keep all 101 Dalmatians. So far, my favorites of the lot. Fantastic art style, lovable characters, great villains with Cruella de Vil and the Baddens, engaging storytelling, and is a delight to watch every time. And I'm not the only one really fond of this film, as it also inspired Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama when he was young. Well, to think that if it weren't for this film, we wouldn't have Goku. Anyhow, this is automatically one of my favorites of the entire canon. The Sword in the Stone I don't think is as good though. We begin with the narrator explaining that after the king died, a sword was placed in a stone for many to attempt to pull it out and become King of England. After nobody could pull it out, it became long forgotten, bringing England to its dark ages. You have no idea how much this foreshadows. Years pass as we cut to little orphan Arthur, or how everyone calls him Wart, scaring off Bambi's mother and older brother Kay, missing an arrow deep in the forest. Arthur is sent to the woods to fetch it, and falls into the hut of a wizard named Merlin with his owl pet Archimedes. Merlin becomes Arthur's tutor, and makes himself home at Arthur's castle. A joust is then announced to be held at New Year's Day, with the winner becoming King of England, with Wart's father entering Kay to the joust, and Arthur being Kay's squire. During the film, Merlin teaches various lessons to Wart by first turning themselves into fish, learning about physics. Arthur gets punished by his father, and is forced to do chores, cause I guess he got bored. Merlin uses magic to do Arthur's chores in the kingdom to teach his next lesson, and turns him and Arthur into squirrels learning about gravity. But some lady squirrels fall in love with them. Once they head back, Arthur's father spots the plates cleaning themselves, scolding Merlin for using black magic, and further punishes Arthur, giving Kay another squire. Merlin plans to educate Wart full-time and lets Archimedes teach his next lesson, turning Arthur into a sparrow learning how to fly. Arthur soon falls into the cottage of Merlin's shape-shifting nemesis Madame Mim, who is honestly the best character in the film. Merlin arrives to rescue Wart, but is challenged by Min to a wizard's duel. Really fun and entertaining climax, I gotta say. Merlin wins despite Min's cheating, and on Christmas Eve, Kay is knighted and Arthur is reinstated as his squire, leading to an angry Merlin to transport himself to 20th century Bermuda.
I'll see you over there. He didn't understand what a Wii U was.
They all head out to the New Year's tournament and realize they left the sword at the inn. Arthur's sent to retrieve it, but the inn's closed and finds a sword lying in a stone and pulls it out. When he heads back, everyone discovers that he pulled out the legendary sword in the stone. Remember the sword that was brought up once at the start and never again up to this point? Yeah, that sword! Which leads Arthur to become the King of England despite barely doing anything worthy throughout the movie. You know that famous cover art of Arthur pulling the sword out of the stone? That was the scene. You'd think this would be a grand, satisfying scene of the hero gaining his reward after everything he went through. But no! It's just a stupid plot convenience! And to further spit in the audience's faces, Arthur starts to have second thoughts and suddenly go, "But I don't want to be King of England!" And then Merlin comes back and tells Arthur, "Don't worry kid, you'll do fine, the end." You know, this movie wasn't great. While characters like Merlin, Archimedes, and Madam Mim just barely carried it, the problem with this film was how unfocused and confused it was. Despite the title of the film being The Sword in the Stone, it's not even the main driving point of the entire film aside the intro and rushed ending. Just Merlin teaching life lessons to Arthur. It would be like calling Citizen Kane Rosebud the Sled. If the film further used the sword as a driving force for the plot, fine. If the movie were called something like The Adventures of Merlin and Arthur instead, double fine. What else can I say but it has wonky storytelling, Arthur goes through voice actors like I go through M&M's sharing bags, the characters feel underdeveloped, the film in general is underdeveloped, and though it had its moments, this is the weakest film of this era, and I wouldn't blame you if you called it the worst. Other than that, this era so far has been pretty strong with lots of great whimsical films, but sadly it wasn't to last, as on December 15th, 1966, Walt Disney passed away at the age of 65, leaving behind a legacy that will not be soon forgotten. But that wasn't exactly the end, as a year later, the last film Walt worked on, The Jungle Book, released in cinemas. Quite possibly one of my most rewatched films in general, let alone the entire animated canon. Already the film's out to a great start, with the credit sequence being one of the best I've seen in any film. Sure, it's not as elaborate and stylish as a Bond movie, but it settles the audience from the book into the film's world perfectly, showcasing the adventure we're about to witness, and the music playing is forever etched into my head. We begin with Bagheera the Panther in the jungle, stumbling upon an infant man cub in a broken boat, and takes into a pack of wolves that adopt him to remind the audience that this is indeed a cartoon. Years pass as Mowgli grows up with them, and the wolves learn that Shere Khan has returned to their parts of the jungle. Somehow Shere Khan returns, asking Bagheera to take Mowgli to the man village. The two set off into the jungle and rest for the night as Mowgli meets up with Kaa, hypnotizing him, and Bagheera stops him before having his man cub snack. They later get woke up by the elephant army, and Mowgli bumps into them for a while, and afterwards, alongside of falling out for refusing to return to the man village, Bagheera leaves Mowgli on his own, where he soon meets a laid-back and always upbeat Baloo, steering him away from the man village, teaching him the bare necessities. One of the greatest Disney songs if you ask me, and even after years of watching this film, I still knew a good chunk of the lyrics, and I doubt it'll leave my head over time. That's how much of a banger it is. Unfortunately, a bunch of monkeys kidnap Mowgli, and Baloo unsuccessfully tries to stop them, leading him to find Bagheera to help rescue Mowgli. Great job protecting the man cub from the dangers of the jungle, Balloon! And speak of the man cub, he's now hanging out with the monkeys led by King Louie with the desire of Mandrive Fire, whilst Baloo and Bagheera plan to rescue Mowgli, leading to I Wanna Be Like You, another great musical sequence with plenty of comedic moments, although King Louie can feel like a negative depiction of African Americans.
You did so well up to this point.
Baloo's cover is blown as they all fight over the man cub in a fun, yet familiar sequence, and the kingdom soon crumbles, turning into a Metroid game. But Mowgli, Baloo, and Bagheera make it out okay. Bagheera then convinces Baloo that Mowgli must return to the man village given the dangers of the jungle, what they just went through at the temple, and also Shere Khan looming around. The next morning, Baloo breaks the bad news to Mowgli, and what do you think happens next? We then get introduced to Shere Khan pouncing towards Bambi's mother, but overhears Bagheera asking the elephants where Mowgli is, giving the cunning tiger ideas. The elephants start a search brigade, all while causing catastrophic damage to the ecosystem, and we never see them again. Mowgli on his own then comes across Kaa once again, hypnotizing him to trust him. Just before having his man cub snack, Shere Khan pops by to ask Kaa about the man cub's whereabouts, all while hiding him, which causes Mowgli to wake up and escape. He then stumbles upon some vultures and quickly befriends them before soon finally meeting Shere Khan, leading to the film's climax with Mowgli facing off against the fierce, intimidating tiger and Baloo coming in to help while taking a hit for the team. Mowgli ties a branch on fire to Shere Khan's tail, scaring him and fleeing like the literal pussy he is. Bagheera arrives as Mowgli mourns Baloo, but turns out he's fine. Sorry for the cop-out, like this is Disney we're talking about, they never stick to keeping their characters dead. And so the trio head deep into the jungle and stumble upon the man village. Mowgli then finds a girl collecting the water and meat, following her back, and thus, Mowgli returns to the man village.
It was the 60s.
We then get one last encore of the bare necessities from Baloo and Bagheera as they boogie deep into the jungle with day transitioning into a nice sunset. Ah, nostalgia. What needs to be said? The characters are great, the scenery is mesmerizing, fantastic songs, possibly the best lineup in a Disney movie so far. Plus, it's the only time I can say that one of their live-action remakes didn't suck. And above all, I could just watch this film any day of the week. Putting aside the whole King Louis debacle and the animation occasionally cutting corners, this is probably my favorite Disney movie so far. Yeah, I do think Fantasia is the better movie and work of art overall, but I am far more likely to put on The Jungle Book when given the option. It's kinda like the Del Toro Pinocchio and Puss in Boots The Last Wish situation. But yeah, The Jungle Book wrapped up both this era and Walt's career with a jazzy and swing-filled bang.
And that was the Silver Age of Disney. Another really strong set of films following up from the Golden Age, taking everything that worked and finessing that to near perfection. Kinda like what the Super NES was to the NES. And when rewatching these films, it turns out that this year in particular is the one I'm most nostalgic over. And while it didn't quite reach the heights of the Golden Age most times, some problems from that era sneaking their way here, and that not everything has gracefully stood the test of time, these have some of the company's finest works. It's gonna be interesting to see how Disney will follow these up after Walt died. So stay tuned for the future. And if I had to rank all 8 films from worst to best, it would be The Sword in the Stone, Cinderella, Lady and the Tramp, Alice in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan, 101 Dalmatians, and The Jungle Book. Have you seen any of these films, and if you did, what do you think of them? Let me know down below, and with that, thanks for watching.